Before going into the concrete examples, it's important to understand that both left and right errors can and have been made in taking up the struggle against white chauvinism in the OC and among tendency forces. Both errors serve to liquidate the struggle against white chauvinism and place a fetter on forging multinational unity in our movement. The most dominant error in our movement is the right error. Comrades have chosen to ignore white chauvinist ideology in our movement and refuse to take up a struggle against it. After several years of attempting to unite the anti-revisionist anti-left opportunist tendency, our movement is still mostly white. Circles within the tendency that predate the OCIC are mostly white. Comrades may have engaged in anti-racist struggles in the mass movement, but as we stated earlier, their failure to wage a struggle against the ideology of white chauvinism has seriously hindered their ability to unite with national minorities and working-class white comrades to join the ranks of the party-building movement. Comrades liquidate the struggle against white chauvinism from the right by taking an empirical approach to the struggle. They think that doing anti-racist practice in the mass movement makes them non-racist. Comrades have worn their work in the anti-Baki and Weber coalitions, or they're sponsoring a forum on South Africa as their anti-racist badges. It's empirical in that comrades have negated the role and necessity of ideological struggle in combating their racism. This empirical approach to the struggle has gone hand in hand with comrades' bourgeois liberalism. White comrades have viewed themselves as friends of the colored people engaged in anti-racist struggles in order to help uplift the downtrodden and oppressed national minorities. They have not struggled against the ideology that holds white workers back from uniting with their natural allies. And they have seen white chauvinism as something outside of themselves, and a problem solely of those backward white workers. In not seeing their white chauvinism, these white comrades have failed to see how their white chauvinism impacts on their anti-racist practice in the mass movement. They have liquidated the role that ideology plays in political struggles. A communist organization can support affirmative action, busing, the fight against police brutality, etc., but without a struggle against white chauvinism among themselves and a systematic approach to deepening cadres' understanding of the centrality of the struggle against racism, their ability to win white workers to those struggles is seriously hindered. Comrades have not recognized how their own white chauvinism has prevented them from winning white workers to those struggles. How can a white comrade successfully win over white co-workers to support affirmative action when he has some unity with the co-workers' white chauvinist view that blacks are not as qualified, are just trying to get over through affirmative action? And white co-workers can see through the hypocrisy of white comrades struggling with them about busing when the white comrades themselves are afraid to go to a meeting about busing in an all-black community at night. If white comrades don't recognize white chauvinism among themselves, they won't be able to recognize and struggle against it among white workers. Furthermore, white comrades have not seen how their racist paternalism towards advanced national minorities in these struggles has prevented those advanced forces from joining the communist movement. Other white comrades have liquidated the struggle against racism from the right by not even engaging in anti-racist struggles in the mass movement in any kind of systematic way. They've paid lip service to its importance, but have not made it an integral part of their day-to-day work. And other white comrades have liquidated the struggle against white chauvinism with the empirical view of, since there aren't any national minorities in our organization, we can't be making racist errors. They liquidate looking at why there are not any national minorities in their organization, and what white chauvinism they manifest in the mass movement. Comrades' rightist tendencies toward bourgeois liberalism have led them to obstruct and liquidate the struggle against racism when a criticism of white chauvinism is raised. They make the right error using an empirical approach to the struggle against racism and only look at the result or impact of racism without examining the ideology of white chauvinism. They use a number of defenses in order to get away from the criticism. Rather than face the criticism squarely and honestly, they hide out, lie, deflect, or even resign. Their bourgeois liberalism and moral approach to the struggle against white chauvinism leads them to defend their errors because they don't view themselves as holding on to white chauvinism. They think their Marxism-Leninism has provided them with a protective shield against bourgeois ideology. They think that facing and acknowledging the criticism honestly means they are bad people. These comrades are making a choice between white chauvinism and Marxism-Leninism. They are saying to us that it's more important to them to protect their self-image, albeit false, than to forge multinational unity and build a genuine communist party. Left errors in the struggle against white chauvinism also serve to liquidate the struggle altogether. The root of the left errors is white chauvinism on the part of white comrades and nationalism on the part of national minority comrades. Both use the bourgeois method of idealism in making left errors. Comrades take up the struggle against the ideology of white chauvinism as something separate and distinct from its manifestation in practice. Harry Haywood in his book Black Bolshevik discusses his views on how left errors were made in the party. He talks about how the moral crusade developed at a time when the party was in a rightward swing in its practice in the anti-racist struggle in the mass movement, and how the moral crusade helped escalate white chauvinism and narrow nationalism in the party. Comrades could be put on trial for using words like blackmail or blackball, or for doing anything that could be interpreted as rude to a national minority comrade. Rather than struggling with the comrade to overcome his or her weaknesses, the slightest manifestation of white chauvinism became grounds for expulsion. By pointing to manifestations of white chauvinism without showing their impact on the class struggle and the multinationality of the party, these comrades were able to liquidate the struggle against racism. So white chauvinism in fact escalated rather than diminished. Comrades were not approaching the struggle from a Marxist-Leninist standpoint. And within that context any narrow nationalism that existed amongst the national minority comrades escalated as well. The narrow nationalist view that white people are incapable of breaking with white chauvinism was given credence by white comrades' liquidation of the struggle. It was the white comrades' racist paternalism that prevented them from challenging the narrow nationalist approach of the national minority comrades. And they thereby fed the national minority comrades' narrow nationalism by not struggling with them, leaving national minorities to rectify the errors of national minorities. It's very instructive to read the excerpt from Haywood's book because in his opinion, the party's liquidation of the struggle against white chauvinism through left errors went hand in hand with its liquidation of the struggle against racism in the mass movement. Similarly, the excerpt on the Yochanan trial shows how vital the party's educational campaign on white chauvinism was to its playing a leading role in the struggle against racism in the mass movement. Left errors have been manifested in white comrades who disassociate themselves from other white comrades whose white chauvinism has been exposed, particularly those who are the most backward in the struggle. Rather than waging a consistent and vigilant struggle with them, some white comrades write them off as hopeless and refuse to talk to them. The comrades who do this are not only liquidating the struggle by writing comrades off, they are protecting themselves from criticism. If they continue to struggle with those whose white chauvinism has been exposed, theirs too may eventually be uncovered. So they are not just liquidating the struggle with other comrades, they are liquidating it with themselves. They are providing a cover for themselves. Other comrades have made left errors by presenting themselves as the leading anti-racist fighters. They point the finger at everyone else's while keeping their own white chauvinism hidden. The serious dangers of both right and left errors is exemplified in the Detroit experience. Both created an obstacle to building multinational unity there. All the black comrades resigned from both circles in Detroit because of the circle's right errors in the struggle against racism. The national minority comrades who stood outside of the circles never joined either of them for the same reasons. DMLO always paid lip service to taking up the struggle against racism in its mass work, but never did. Any work that was taken up was initiated by the black comrades and the organization, and the white comrades wouldn't even participate. In addition, Their racist paternalism toward the black comrades in the organization was never taken up. DSC was taking up the struggle against racism in the mass movement, but their failure to grasp the role of white chauvinism ideology led to their making right errors in the struggle. And their racist paternalism toward the black comrade in DSC led to their inability to take his leadership in the struggle for a Marxist-Leninist approach to the struggle. These are the conditions under which both circles were left all white. As a reaction to the racism of DSC and DMLO comrades, some of the black comrades allowed nationalism to emerge among them. They lost confidence in the white comrades' ability to move forward and viewed them as hopelessly mired in white chauvinism. During a week of informal discussions, the black comrades approached the struggle against white chauvinism in an idealist fashion and looked at the ideas white comrades held about national minorities separate from their actual practice. The black comrades' left errors, whose ideological base was narrow nationalism, only served to liquidate the struggle against white chauvinism. The white comrades' response was to continue the left errors and liquidation of the struggle by confessing to their horrible thoughts about national minorities. They didn't struggle with the black comrades for the correct approach to the struggle. They didn't look at white chauvinism in its relationship to the real world, and see concretely how to change. They didn't look at the interrelationship between their views and their practice. They promoted an unprincipled unity between narrow nationalism, "You white people won't change," and white chauvinism, "You're right, we're all hopeless." All they had to do was confess to their bad ideas and go back home, go back to the same old patterns. Comrades must avoid making either right or left errors in taking up the struggle against white chauvinism. Right errors in the struggle against racism have been the most dominant in our movement, and particular attention must be paid to combating those errors. Both right and left errors serve to keep our movement mostly white and petty bourgeois. Both maintain the obstacle to multinational unity. Both reinforce the conspiracy of white chauvinism. Once a few comrades break with the conspiracy, step forward and make genuine self-criticisms and expose others who are still participating in the conspiracy, it's much easier for the process to move forward. Comrades must approach the struggle from the standpoint of Marxism-Leninism. They must look at their practice and examine what the impact of their white chauvinism has been on national minority comrades and how it has served to maintain the whites-only policy of comrades in the OC. They must look at how their refusal to take it up and their petty bourgeois chauvinism have served to assist the bourgeoisie in keeping the class divided. And they must be resolute about waging a vigilant and consistent struggle against it from now on.